Hey everyone, it's Joanne Chan. I'm a psychologist, creative wellness educator, creative, and mom. I'm here for another live session. So I'll be here for about 15 minutes. And I usually talk about a wellness education topic and maybe take questions if any of you have questions. I'm just going to start by sharing about a recent article that I read. And I thought it was a really well-written article about trauma and creativity. So the conclusion from this research article is that the number of adverse life events you have throughout your life actually positively correlates with creativity. So just take that in for a minute. So the more adversity and sometimes even like significant trauma you've been through, the more likely you are to show signs of creativity. You can think of probably lots of reasons for why that might be, and maybe we can kind of explore why that is. One thought I have is that maybe when you go through adversity, you are experiencing a lot of limitations in your life. And because of those limitations and those barriers, it might mean that you have to be creative and think outside of the box about how to survive, how to cope with the adversity. So if you've just arrived, I'm talking about how a research article shows that the more adverse life events you have in your life, the more likely you are to be creative. And specifically, the more likely you're able to think about new ideas and find creative solutions to problems, as well as think outside of the box and have different kinds of responses to situations than a typical person. So I'm talking about kind of like why that might be, like what makes someone who's been through so much adversity more likely to be creative. And one of my hypotheses, sorry, I just had lunch, so still kind of digesting things. So one hypothesis is that maybe because you have a lot of barriers in your life, you might have to find lots of creative, out-of-the-box ways to survive and cope and thrive. Sometimes people call that resourcefulness. I remember that one of my supervisors in my training years said that I was really resourceful. That was the first time I've heard that word used as part of my feedback. And so I asked what that meant. And she said that I was really good at trying to figure out solutions and find like different kind of skills, different interventions that could help people who didn't quite respond to the treatment that was delivered in the normal way. So what that means is, like, you know, in psychology as a therapist, there's a lot of treatment interventions that we are taught. And there's usually certain steps. I mean, we try not to be so rigid. That's not very helpful. But oftentimes they come as packages. And there's like certain things that you do during treatment and a certain order. And a lot of people who are seen in therapy don't respond very well to that package. And so they might need an adapted approach. And so I think being resourceful means that you can kind of think of different ways to package or to kind of couch the ideas to this person, or find a way to integrate things that they already do as part of treatment and see if you can like layer on new skills. So just trying to find like creative ways to make things work. And so that's something that I think people who've been through a lot of adversity might be particularly good at, because they can't just assume that everything will work out. They are probably used to things not working out or being easy. And so they have to always be on their toes and be able to shift and be flexible and find ways to make things work in their life. It's really cool to see that being shown in the research, because I do think that oftentimes when we think about the trauma that we've been through, it's kind of a downer, right? It can make you feel really down about yourself, about your life. It can make some people feel like why me? Why did I go through all of that and the next person didn't? Maybe I'm unlucky or I'm unfortunate, and then that kind of story just sticks and can really lead to lots of unhealthy thinking and behaving. So I really like this idea that actually there's some silver lining that can come out of going through adverse experiences. You can come out a more resilient person. You can come out of that with more belief in yourself, that you can solve problems and that you can be creative. That was one of the findings, that you have more belief in yourself, that you can be creative when you need to be. So I thought that was just something I wanted to share with all of you. And perhaps it's more about understanding and being able to see how your adversities might have led you to being creative. But I do think it can also help us approach our present moment challenges as well as future challenges in a different way, right? Because if you think about difficulties you're going through, like instead of thinking like, oh, this sucks, it's super stressful, wish I didn't have to go through this. Yeah, I mean, that's probably true. But if you focus on that too much, it might be more likely to weigh you down and make you less able to be creative and energized. But if you think, you know what, this sucks, it's kind of a part of life too. It's the hand I've been dealt with. So how can I accept that and maybe make it the best situation it can be? And perhaps thinking about how it's like allowing you to be more creative, allowing you to think more resiliently and flexibly. I think that can perhaps take the edge off or help you shift into a different mindset than you normally would be if you were experiencing adversity. It's that saying like, I'm building character, like when you're going through a really hard time, like I'm building character. I think that's the same idea. It's kind of like shifting the focus on how horrible the situation is, but rather how it's shaping you, how it's causing you to grow and be a better person. One thing I've really been grateful for in terms of like my life and the things that I've gone through, because I've gone through a lot of adversity myself, and I've had a lot of privilege too. I've had both. But when I think about the adversity I've gone through, I realize it's really helped me relate to my clients or just anyone I come in contact with. Like the more I've been through in my life, the greater diversity of experiences I've been through, adversity and positive experiences, the more I'm going to be able to connect with and relate with other people. So that's been a real gift, even though those times were really hard. If you're just joining me, I'm talking about this finding from a research study where they found that adverse life events positively correlates with creativity. So creative problem solving, creative generation of ideas, as well as the belief that you can be creative and have different kinds of responses to situations. It's a really great way to kind of perceive what happens, or to kind of think about like what happens when you go through challenges. There's a lot going on in your mind that is adapting to those challenges. And a lot of that can be very positive, can be very resilience building. right? So if you think about adversity, just keep that in mind when you're going through your own hard days. You might notice that you might have a hard time seeing positively in those moments, and that's okay. But if you can just kind of take a step back and remind yourself, it's not all bad, right? There's actually a lot of growth and character building and resilience building and flexibility building in those moments that you're going through, those adverse events. And the studies showed that certain kinds of events impacted people more than others. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but I do think it's like, like how you go through, how you experience the event, how you navigate through it can also affect your ability to come out more resilient or not. So hi everyone, I'm seeing some of you just join. I've been talking about this research finding that adverse life events correlates with creativity. And so for all of you who engage in creative practices yourself, maybe think back to like what sort of events, what moments in your life do you often reference when you're creating? Where do you sort of pull your ideas from? Where do you feel, what point in your life do you feel like your reference point, your perspectives shifted pretty significantly? My bet is on the fact that those shifts happened during really difficult times. And so that's just a reminder that even though we go through difficult times, those are moments that we can really grow from. It's an amazing kind of dichotomy of ideas there. That's really hard and it sucks. And gosh, the growth comes from that, right? So remember that. I'm going to talk more about this in the future. These are things I'm going to be talking about in my wellness programming. If you want to be in the know about my in-person as well as online events, classes, talks, retreats, you might want to go to my bio and subscribe to my email list, because that's where I'm going to be sharing a lot of my offerings. And there's also a link there for my retreat. My retreat is coming up in September, 1 hour east of Portland. And this might be one of the things that we talk about, like how to kind of shift into the mindset that adversity can really lead to resilience and creativity rather than just being stressful and horrible. Okay. So I'm going to sign off now. Thank you for joining. It was a quick 15 minutes. I really enjoyed sharing about this study, and I'm going to share this video on my one of my posts. So if you didn't catch the whole thing and you wanted to find out what else I talked about, you can watch it there. Okay. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.